Hello guys, today we are going to discuss about the triggers. See, this is very important point as far as the trigger is considered. One way of making field as mandatory. So with the help of trigger, we can make the field as mandatory. So basically, we can make the field as mandatory in different ways. One is while creating the field in normal way or by using the schema builder. So while creating the field, first one. Second one is using validation rule, using page layout, using triggers, using Apex class, using Visual Force. So these are the ways in which you can make the field as mandatory. Using the trigger, you can make the field as mandatory with the help of this code. We will discuss this code and we will execute this code in the later stages of sections. Okay. Best practices for trigger. This is very important question as far as the interview is concerned. The first point is one trigger per one object. If multiple triggers are on same object, there is no guarantee for the order of execution. If one on one object, if more than one trigger is there, then we cannot give a guarantee that this trigger will fire first, this trigger will fire second, this trigger will fire third. There is no control over the order of execution. There is no guarantee for the order of execution. So that's why we have to write all the triggers on, all the one trigger. I'm sorry. We have to write on one object one trigger. In the trigger you have to write multiple events that we will discuss in the third point. Follow naming convention, we will discuss this also. So if you don't follow the naming convention for the trigger, after writing 10, 20, 30 triggers on different objects, you will get confused which trigger is belongs to which one. Okay, so that is why you should follow naming convention and use only required events in the trigger. Yes, you know as I said, use all the events in one object. If you don't use all the events, but if you are incorporating all the events, that is going to be the bulk event, that is of no use, right? So that's why required events should be placed. That means before insert, after insert, we have different in events, right? Before insert, after insert, before update, after update, before delete, after undelete. There are seven, right? Seven events are okay. So you have to use properly. If they are using really, if you are make use of them, you have to place them. Otherwise, don't use those things in the trigger. Trigger should be bulkified. Okay, bulkified in the sense, don't write trigger for single records. Assume that the trigger should work for even for multiple records. That means bulk records. For example, if trigger bulk trigger, the trigger name of the trigger is bulk trigger on lead, before insert. Okay, the moment if we click the press button new trigger, this line automatically come. Okay, lead le equal to trigger dot new of 0, array of 0. That means the first element is going to insert in the array, the first element is going to insert. At that time, lead le dot, this le dot rating is equal to 1. That means this trigger works for only one record, that is first record, but it will insert only one record. This trigger works, but it will work for only one record. So try to avoid using these kind of triggers. Okay, try to avoid this kind of triggers. Use this kind of triggers. You write the for loop for lead le trigger dot new. See, whatever using workbench or any data loader or any other tool, if you're sending some 5,000 or 10,000 records, all the records will go on entering into this trigger dot new. Okay, so now for example, if this trigger dot new holds 5,000 records, for all the 5,000 records, le dot rating is equal to 1. For all the records, the rating will be 1. Okay, so that means this trigger works for bulk records. So all the time write this kind of trigger. This is very important in the interview perspective. So they may ask you what is bulk trigger. Bulk trigger means this is a single record trigger. This is for bulk record trigger. Okay, always use these kind of triggers. Next, the continue page. It is page 2. Avoid using SOCL inside the loops. Avoid using DML inside the loops. Because we have limited SOCLs, limited DMLs, right? So using SOCL, we can query. There are governor limits, right? We will discuss those things also. So this fifth point and sixth point we will discuss every day. In the triggers, we will discuss every day avoid using SOQL inside the loop, avoid using DML, what to do to avoid this DML, what is the best practice to avoid this DML also. Okay, we will discuss these 2 points every day. So try to remember, avoid using SOQL inside, avoid using DML inside loops, query large sets of data. So that means you have to query using SOQL, you have to query large sets of data. See, write SOQL inside for loop so that SOQL query results divides into chunks of each batch 200 records, which is done by Force.com platform itself. So that it will not hit the governor limit, that is 50,000 records for each SOQL query. That is efficient way of writing for loop. So you can add one more point, efficient way of writing for loop. I will tell you how. For example, create one set of IDs. List of account ACC list is equal to select ID comma name from the account. It will fetch all the accounts of IDs and names. Okay, it will fetch all the accounts. For example, if it is having more than 50,000 records, it will hit the this SOQL query hit the governor limit if you write like this. Now for each account ACC list, this is whatever the accounts which are available in ACC list, I am iterating each account one by one. For each account A in the ACC list. Okay. Set IDs dot add of A dot ID. Now I'm adding each account ID to this set IDs. Okay, why I took set, this set doesn't repeat the values, right? But if more than 50,000 records are there, then it will hit the governor limit. There definitely this will hit the governor. This is best practice, but this is not exact the correct way, because if 50,000 records are there, 50,000 plus records are there, it will not work. But this will work. Set of ID, set ID is equal to new set of ID. I took one set for IDs, storing the IDs. For account, each account A, I am writing the SOQL query inside the for loop. This is the efficient way of writing for loop. This is very, very important. It is used for querying large sets of data, even more than 50,000. Set IDs dot add of A dot ID. Each account ID I am storing into this set. It will store this. Now this set can store more than 50,000 records, but this set cannot store. Actually, set is the point here is not the set. It is about the SOQL query. If you write SOQL query inside the for loop, it will handle more than 50,000 records also. Usually SOQL query results only 50,000 records. Okay, but if I write the SOQL query inside the for loop, it can handle more than 50,000 records. Okay, because in this approach, this is second approach, that is the meaning. Even if more than 50,000 records are there, it will not hit the governor limit, because all the records are divided into small chunks of 200 records per each batch. It will result in the small chunks of batches. Okay, each batch size is 200. So it will, for example, 60,000 records are there, it will hit the governor limit because it is for more than 50,000. But the 60,000 is divided into 200, it will 60,000 by 200, definitely it will come less than 50,000, so that it will not hit the governor limit. Okay, each batch size 200, which is done by Force.com platform itself. Next, page 3, continuation for the best practices for the trigger. Implement the code in the trigger handler class. Okay, so we should implement the code in the trigger handler class so that sharing settings can be implemented. Okay, otherwise whoever that is user run the trigger. For example, if I run the trigger in the previous, if I run this trigger, for example, whatever the accounts, how many accounts, for example, 50,000 or 60,000 records are there, 60,000 accounts or 70,000 accounts are there, all the accounts will come. Even if I run the trigger, or if you run the trigger, or somebody else guy run the trigger, this trigger will get all the records, irrespective of their level of access. Irrespective of their level of access, all the records it will fetch. But if I write the trigger inside the trigger handler class, so if I write the code in the trigger handler class, so that sharing settings can be implemented. That means irrespective of their level for example, if I don't write the trigger handler classes, irrespective of their level of access, all the records can be seen. If we write the code in the trigger handler class using with the sharing keyword, we can restrict the level of access, that is depending upon the level of access of the user who is running the trigger, the records will get open to him or her. That means, for example, if I run the trigger, depending upon my level of access, if I am able to get 10,000 records out of 50,000 or 60,000, I will be able to get only 10,000. If you are running the trigger, if you are capable of getting 20,000 records, if you, with your profile or with your access, you will get only 20,000. Those 20,000 records, you will not get all the records. That means the sharing settings are implemented if you write the trigger inside the trigger handler class. And the next point is recursion should be avoided. Recursion should be means, it should not have. We should not get the we should not write recursive trigger. I will tell you what is recursive trigger in the next stage of classes. Recursion should be avoided. Repetition, okay, loop, okay, recursion should be avoided. Avoid hard coding of IDs. That means your trigger should not work for particular record of ID which is given. Your trigger should be generic. Your trigger should be work for any kind of records. That means you should not write the IDs. That means you should not hard code the IDs of the trigger. Okay. How trigger is different from workflow and process builder? Workflow and process builder are also automated process, which executes only insertion or update occur on record, but trigger executes whenever a DML, that is insertion, update, delete, undelete, merge. Merge means update and delete, and upset. Upset means insert and update occur. So that means this workflow and process builder works only insertion or delete occur. Insertion and update occur. Then only this workflow and process builder file. But the trigger executes whenever a DML, that means insertion, update, delete, undelete, merge. Merge means update as well as delete, and upset, insert and update. So that means for every DML we can make use of the trigger. That is the the trigger is the more advantage than workflow and process builder. When to use trigger.new, trigger.old, trigger.new map, trigger.old map? There are 6 events, 7 events are there. Of course, I don't want to consider the last event, that is after undelete. I'm considering the 6 events: before insert, after insert, before update, after update, before delete, after delete. For the first one, this horizontal trigger.new, trigger.old, this is trigger.new, trigger.new map, trigger.old, old map. Okay. Before insert, use only trigger.new. Guys, very important, trigger.new. So trigger.new map is also won't use, because for insertion there is no ID. For the map, definitely there should be ID. If it is old, definitely already inside. If the record is inside their Salesforce, then we can use the trigger.old. For the insertion, before insertion, there is no ID, so there is no new map. There is nothing like inside already. There is nothing like inside record is present inside the Salesforce. So trigger.old is also not there. Old map is also not there, because map contains IDs. Right. After insertion, so trigger.new and new map. So insertion takes only new ones. Okay. That too, for before insertion only new, after insertion new and new map. Okay. The quite opposite is for almost for before delete, there is nothing like new. Okay. If you want to delete the record, definitely it should be placed already. It should be available inside the Salesforce. So it should be there. So trigger.new and new map, they are entering into the Salesforce. So it should be already placed. So that means trigger.old and trigger.old map will be there for before delete and after delete. For before delete and before update and after update, all four will be available. Okay. So this is the fundamental difference between when to use trigger.new, new map, old map. Simple, guys. For before insertion, new, for delete old, for update all. Okay, right. So these are the triggers which we're going to discuss in the next stage of classes. Okay, thank you.